Can you dig it, sucker?
You are listening to the Hall of Fame. Here's Booker T and Brad Gilmore.
Jimmy Smith has been making a few comments since he left WWE, and I definitely want to lean into that right there. I like Jimmy Smith, first of all. I thought he was a good dude. I thought he did good.
Seems like a good guy.
He did his job, especially picking it up and being able to go out there and deliver, being a guy who wasn't from the wrestling business. But when I see his comments after, leaving, WWE, it just kind of disturbs me as far as letting guys like a Jimmy Smith into our business ever again. You know what I mean? Because, he came in to get paid to do a job, but then to leave the job, to want to disparage it is it's beyond me. I don't even know why, first and foremost, but Jimmy Smith says how, he wasn't paid to be a commentator. He was paid to play one on TV, which is true. But is that something you got to go out on your show and talk about? Is that something that the people really need to know about? He wasn't paid to commentate, fights. He was he's paid to commentate fake wrestling matches. When I hear people talk like that after they've gotten paid from this business, I think you should never let a guy like Jimmy Smith in the wrestling business or anyone like him ever again in our business, because that's exactly what they think of us. They think we're just a bunch of fake guys. We're out there just playing a game. I bet you any kind of money that check, it cashed, and that the dollars were real. I bet you that. And that's the only thing that matters at the end of the day. Did you get paid well? Did they slight you on your money or anything? Did anyone treat you differently or badly or in any way or anything like that? And it just makes me wonder. You know what I mean? What kind of person you're really dealing with sometimes, because I always thought Jimmy Smith was a pretty cool guy. But to hear that kind of talk, like I say, it bothers me because I love this business. I love what it has done for me and my family. And I love to watch these young guys get a chance to go out there and fulfill that dream that they, probably had since they were little bitty kids. And that dream wasn't to go out and be a fake wrestler or anything like that. That dream was to go out there and perform in front of the world, in front of the greatest fans that ever lived, the WWE universe. So it pisses me off a little bit hearing stuff like that.
It pisses me off too. Let me read the quote just for context. He says, let me explain. I wasn't a commentator in the WWE. I played a commentator on television. That's not an insult. I'm not saying it was difficult or not, because it's very difficult, but it's like you're playing a character pretending to commentate fake fights. That's what he said. And yeah, I take great umbrage with that. Because
and the only reason why I mean, not to cut you off, the only reason it ticks me off is because it's something that didn't need to be said. He said that because he wanted to say it.
Yeah, there's an agenda behind that. That just wasn't. Yeah, you're right. A random comment. And look, I actually said it on this show. I didn't think Jimmy Smith was going to last very long, and I think, remember, I said that as soon as he came on, and then I said, hey, you know what? He's actually doing a great job. Like, I thought he was a very serviceable and adequate commentator, and I had no issue with him. He didn't turn me off. He didn't give me the calls of the century or anything like that, but I thought he was very serviceable at his job. And to me, I saw when he got released, he said, yeah, I'm so grateful for the opportunity, blah, 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 blah. But then you come out and you want to disrespect the business that kept you gainfully employed for the last year or however long it's been. And to me, you are a commentator. By the way, dictionary definition of a commentator is a person who comments on events. And I think that's what exactly he was doing. And he was commenting on the event that it's in front of you. You're not playing a commentator on television. When I go out in reality wrestling and I'm doing the play-by-play, I'm not playing a commentator. I'm calling the action that I see in front of me. There's no character there. If you make a joke or something, that's not even a character thing. That's just making the broadcast enjoyable, like any sports broadcaster does. But when I see a collar and elbow tie-up, I say that's a collar and elbow tie-up. Is that me playing it? Is that scripted for me to say that? Am I a character pretending to be a commentator?
That's what it is.
And Jimmy should have more respect for this industry than to use that F word. That fake word. That fake word is almost the ultimate no-no. And I'm not saying that we're taking this industry more important than it needs to be. It's a form of entertainment at the end of the day. But to use a word that's disrespectful to the harm that people like yourself, Booker, and the people who he was fake commentating for months, the harm that they put onto their bodies, the damage that this business and industry takes on them, the toll that it takes on you mentally and physically. Nothing about that is fake. Is this a show? Yeah, it's a show. But guess what? As JR said famously one time, you can't fake gravity, kid. Right? Everything that you see out there is 100% real. As far as I'm concerned, do you know what I mean? Like, it's real because we see what happens to guys like Darren Drozdoff, right? Like Draws, right?
Yeah.
We see what happens to people in this industry. So I think that's such BS from Jimmy Smith. And I lost a lot of respect for him. I did.
Yeah. You know, like I say, it was just something that did need to be said. And for him to harbor those feelings, you know what I mean, about the business, and then to, you know, want people to know that that's the way he felt about it after working in it and getting paid a check for it for however long you said, a year and a half, 2 years, whatever it was. It just, like I say, it just shows me the character more than anything. Do I have a problem with Jimmy Smith? Do I, you know, am I going to run up on him or anything? No, but like I said, no, it's just a shame more than anything, because I thought Jimmy Smith was bigger than that, more so than anything. We got to take a break, guys. Stick around. You're in the Hall of Fame. We'll be back in a minute. Can you dig it, sucker?
You're listening to the Hall of Fame. Here's Booker T and Brad Gilmore.
Just the foul language. You know, the foul language for me, for that company, AEW, it seemed like they're not even trying to expand their audience. Because for me, just say for instance, when I had a buddy, he had a cannabis shop in LA, right? And he had nurses out on the sidewalk, and the nurses had these little short dresses on, saying, "Hey guys, come in, you know, get your card, you know what I mean? See the doctor, get your card today," and whatnot. And I told my buddy, I said, "Hey man, do you know that you are representing the community as a doctor? And for me, if I was, you know, coming from Texas and I had my kids with me and I saw something like that, I would be really hot, because I don't need you teaching my kids about that. That's something for me to teach my kids about." What I'm saying is that kind of, you know, that kind of business, you know, you giving everybody a bad rep more than anything. And I think there again, the foul language for me, for my kids to want to watch that, I might tend to say, "No, I don't want you guys to watch this, because you're going to be teaching my kids words that I don't really actually want them to be saying in school the next day." You know what I mean? So when I see something like that, I just got to call it for what the way it is. And I just don't think that company is trying to grow their audience past 1 million fans, more so than anything. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I know that we'll talk about the foul language right now, since you just brought it up. I think that obviously when they're starting out AEW, they're trying to do everything to differentiate themselves from the WWE, right? I mean, it makes sense. You want to be a true alternative, a different variation of the product. You don't want to be WWE Light or WWE 2.0 or what have you.
Yeah.
So you have the promos be a little unscripted, maybe use a little vulgar language to kind of pop the crowd, like, "Oh, this is a little bit more adult oriented. I do want to tune in." But you're absolutely right. Now it's in the past couple of months, I keep reading that they're trying to take back some of that foul language. And I love Saraya, but going on television and talking about a women's private area with a not so beautiful term for Ace Steel, whom you're aware of now, Booker, Ace Steel using the F word on television, and every other thing is S this, S that. You know, we're on the radio, so we can't say those words, but everybody knows what I'm talking about. It's not good. I think it just, to me, more than anything, demeans wrestling, not even the product. It demeans wrestling.
Yeah.
Just like a few years ago, I remember we had an incident at Reality Wrestling where there was somebody spat, and we actually cut it out, right? Because you weren't okay with it, because you said, "Look, this is a family show. I don't want to see that on a morning television after church." Right? We don't need that kind of language. We don't need blood on our show. We don't need any kind of bodily secretion, to say the very least. right? Because it's taken wrestling so long to not be looked at as a lesser art form, right? I remember people just be like, "Oh, you like wrestling?" Right? And we've been able to break that thanks to guys like you and The Rock and Steve Austin kind of ushering in a popularity for it. We were able to get this big audience, and then it's become family entertainment. WWE and pro wrestling has replaced P.T. Barnum, Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey, right? It's replaced that. This is the new circus that you can bring your family to, and there's something on there for everybody. The dad and the mom are going to like it, and the kids are going to like it. And we use that language, man. It's just. I think we're past that. We're past that moment in wrestling.
Just to give you a little story before we take this break coming up here in a minute. I remember back in the day. All right, we used to go do these high school shows all the time. I mean, it was a common thing for wrestling to be held at a high school gym on a regular basis or every weekend. And I remember we were working at this one high school in Bel Air. Okay. And I remember the guy said, "Hey guys, no bleeding or anything like that. No vulgar language." Okay. And I remember Tiger Conway Jr., he went out and he bled so much. I mean, you'd have thought he was Abdullah the Butcher. He was bleeding so bad all over the kids running, screaming. It was chaos. And they kicked our asses out of that school so quick. And we never got back into the independent school district, HISD, ever again after that. I tried to do a show at my old junior high school with my Reality of Wrestling company, and we went and did it. But I'm going to tell you right now, it was so hard to get into that high school because of what those guys did back in the day. And I'm going to tell you right now, if they didn't want it in the schools where the kids were, and those are the kids who potentially may be watching the show, you don't think that's hurting your product? You don't think that's perhaps maybe something that you might want to think about? I could be wrong. Stick around. You're in the Hall of Fame. We'll be back in a minute. Welcome back inside the Hall of Fame, guys. I'm just chopping it up, talking about the state of the union in professional wrestling. Had to pull my Wolf Blitzer hat out. But I don't know, man. Like I said, that's just my thoughts on that. As far as where we are in professional wrestling, like I say, that story I was just telling about back in the day at that high school, it definitely changed the whole name of the game as far as, wrestling companies like myself being able to go to a high school and be able to go out there and do a fundraiser, for whatever, the band department, whatever, raise some books, whatever. All of that went out the door back in the day.
He is a stand-up icon who is one of the top-earning comedians today. He has entertained billions of people the world around, and now he has a new Netflix comedy special from a stadium in Los Angeles, California. It's Dodger Stadium. We're not going to knock him on that. Could have done it at Minute Maid. Neither here nor there. But it's called Stadium Fluffy, and the man, the myth, the legend himself, Gabriel Iglesias, joins us this morning. We talk about the special. We talk about the differences of having to do it in a theater as opposed to an arena, or this time a stadium, having to do comedy and that. We talk a little bit about the production elements. We had to talk a little pro wrestling. I know he's a massive wrestling fan, but he actually informs us about how wrestling helps shape his stand-up comedy. And we talk about that and so much more here on this episode of The Collection. So let's not waste any time. Let's get it started. Here is Gabriel Fluffy Iglesias. And he joins me now to talk the brand new Netflix comedy special, Stadium Fluffy, perhaps the greatest title in the history of titles. Gabriel Iglesias joins us this morning on the show. Gabriel, how you doing? Congratulations on the new special.
I am fantastic. Thank you. Yeah, I know, right? 2 words.
2 words, but it says so much in those 2 words, right? Stadium Fluffy. Of course, this is the special that you did live at Dodger Stadium, man. I mean, just talk to me about that, because I know that was a historic moment for yourself, but also for so many, for you to sell out Dodger Stadium to do this special. Let me ask you this: how was the show? And then was it always the plan to film the special from Dodger Stadium?
No, actually, the original plan was to film it in San Antonio, Texas. I was in the middle of a thing where Netflix wanted a special sooner than later, and I had not performed in over a year because, we were stuck at home.
Mm-hmm.
And so I says, well, all right, at the time when Netflix wanted this special, it wasn't really an option to perform anywhere but Florida or Texas, because those were the only two states that allowed live performances. So the plan was to do a show in San Antonio, and I wound up getting COVID in San Antonio. So plan B, hell of a plan B, was, hey, what do you think about this Dodger Stadium thing? And I'm like, well, if we could fill it, we should film it.
Man,
and we did.
Yeah, I mean, that's incredible. I mean, this is your first special in a couple of years, like, post-pandemic, obviously, but I mean, even before the pandemic. This is your first special since 2019, I believe. The great thing about comedy too is that it can translate to a stadium full of people, and I want to ask you kind of about that, because when you come up as a comic, obviously you're coming up in the clubs and you're working on material, and then you go to the theaters or wherever, the improvs, the laugh factories, and so on and so forth. What's the difference? I mean, there's got to be a massive difference going from an intimate setting of maybe 1,500, even 5,000 people to a baseball stadium full of tens of thousands of people. How do you feel the comedy translates in that large venue?
I think that ultimately it comes down to technology, because it has to be like I wasn't nervous about my material. I wasn't worried about how well I was going to perform. I was worried about, hey, is the sound system going to be good enough to pull that off? Because, anytime you've seen a movie where it's a baseball stadium, you always get that super echo, that now batting, number. And so I thought, like, is it going to sound like that? And that's basically just a house system versus you bringing in your own, like, equipment that you borrowed from Metallica. So, so technology, like I said, a good sound system made all the difference in the world. And then I had to learn about a thing called delay towers. So like it was so massive they had to put delay towers in. I'm like, what is that? And they're like, it's so that you don't echo. I was like, good deal.
I like it. Stadium Fluffy, of course, on Netflix streaming. As far as the production element, because I'm just fascinated by it, because you brought up the delay towers. Normally, like when a comedian tapes a special, they do one or two shows typically, sometimes more, sometimes less, depending on what the presentation's all like. What was the production of this show? I mean, I don't think you got more than one opportunity to do it, right?
Actually, we did 2 nights.
You did two nights.
We did a Friday night and a Saturday night. I'm sorry, I want to say they went with the second night of taping. The first night we were still trying to get some of the kinks out, and definitely we had it dialed in by the second night. Fortunately, we had 2. If I had to rely only on one taping, I would have been very nerve-wracking. That's why I don't know how comedians can do those, specials live. Whenever you'd hear about, like HBO specials, sometimes comedians will go live, and I'm like, that is scary. That for me would be the scariest thing in the world, is to go live, because you never know what could go wrong.
Yeah, but I know that you're a wrestling fan, and Vince McMahon once said it can't go wrong if it's live, right? So whatever happens, happens. And you know what? Speaking of that, I know that you're a wrestling fan. Down here, I'm here in Houston, Texas. I do a radio show with Booker T, the legend, the Hall of Fame legend, Booker T. I wanted to ask you, because Booker's a hilarious guy, and I find that there's a connection between stand-up comedy and pro wrestling, mainly on timing and audience reactions. Am I way off on this, or do you think that there's a connection?
You are right on point. As a matter of fact, a lot of the things that I do, I model after wrestling. And I know Booker, so you tell him I say hello, sucker.
So what do you mean you model it after wrestling? I'm fascinated by that.
I'm not, because you know what? It's not just a show. I mean, it's a presentation. So, like, for example, the way that I carry myself on stage, the way I engage with people, I'm a huge fan of wrestling. I either wanted to become a professional wrestler or a comedian when I was growing up. And I realized early on I couldn't handle pain, so I went the joke route. My shows, the way that I do them in the arenas, I model them after like shows like Monday Night Raw or SmackDown. The merchandise that I put out, it's like high quality. I order my stuff from the same companies and manufacturers that Vince does. I'm a huge fan of Vince's, by the way, because I think that he doesn't get enough credit for pulling off such an amazing product.
I agree with you. I mean, if you just look at the history of pro wrestling, where it went from to where it is now, similar to comedy, and even your comedy, right? Going from the small clubs to now playing stadiums, wrestling was never meant to be this massive worldwide entertainment form that it is. Do you have a great story or funny interaction? Do you have a funny interaction with any of the wrestlers or something that stands out to you?
I've had wrestlers come out to my events, and of course I go to wrestling events all the time, whether it's a Rumble or Mania. I've been to like 7 Manias. I actually got a chance to have a little face-off with The Miz, and basically it was me getting in and out of the ring, avoiding The Miz. But even just to jump in the ring, it takes some physical, and not just anybody can just jump up there. And I'm a big guy, but I didn't actually wrestle, but I got really close to it. And there was one time I got choked out by Roddy Piper. That's that doesn't happen every day. And there's one thing to sell it. There's one thing to actually be getting choked out. And I didn't have to sell it, because when he would put a move on you, you sell or I'm gonna sell it. So yeah.
Piper's got to protect the business.
Piper got to protect the business. He was legit. He was such an awesome person, and I can say that I fed him after he choked me.
There you go. I know you have so much to do. I have time for one final question for you. Talking about Stadium Fluffy, the new special on Netflix. As far as the time it took you to put together this material, I know you mentioned during the pandemic, a lot of places shut down. We here in Texas kind of pretended the pandemic never started. But for most places, you didn't have that opportunity to work on the material. How long did it take you to compile this? And was it more difficult preparing for this special than, say, ones previously?
The thing is that I had more than enough time because we had that extra year. So I had already had a set that was ready to be recorded. And then, of course, having a year to just do nothing but think, it gave me more time to just add on to what I already had. And so this special is not a 1 hour special. It's actually a 2 hour special. So it's the longest special that Netflix has put out. And it's the biggest one. So there's a lot of pressure.
A lot of pressure, man. And you know what? It was 2 hours, and only a stadium could hold that much funny from Fluffy. Hey, man,
Nice.
You see what I did there? I'm trying to sell the product. I'm trying to get it over.
I like what you did there. You got it over as far as I'm concerned.
All right. Well, you know what, man? Congratulations to you. Much success. We love you down here in Texas. Next time you're in Houston, me and Book, we're going to have to come check you out. But Gabriel Iglesias, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Can I tell a quick story about that show?
Yeah.
I remember we got to the building and the Impact representatives were in there in your office, right? The people putting the show together. And they're like, okay, so yeah, this is what we're thinking. And they start kind of laying out their vision of the show for the night. And you're like, yeah, we're not doing any of that. And I'm sitting there, and I had to do this. I had to put my hand over my mouth to not completely break. And I'm not going to say who was in the room, but these are people who've been around for a minute. Some of them have a legendary status in our industry. Some of them were the guys for the company. And you were just like, yeah, we're not doing any of that. And you're laughing. I don't know if you remember it, but you're laughing because if you don't remember, okay.
I do remember it vividly. No, man, because I needed to be right, man. That's all.
Oh, I feel you. I felt you on it.
It wasn't anything against anybody or anything like that, but sometimes people can think that I'm thinking about myself. You know what I mean? It should be, connected to me. It's like reality wrestling. I always said it needs to float on its own. I can't have, it be called Booker T's reality of wrestling. It's not going to work. It's got to be able to float on its own. And my ideas are always about how these young guys could come up, how we can create something and everybody win at the end of the day. And I think it should be more of that, especially with, smaller organizations, because we're not going to get anywhere, trying to fight against each other.
There was a time a couple of months ago or even a couple of weeks ago where people were writing Jericho off, like online. They're like, man, this guy needs to go away. He needs to just take some time off the show. It's too much Jericho. He's not the same, da-da-da-da-da. And I guess Chris may have heard that, because the last month and a half, that show, AEW Dynamite, would not be as good or even remotely watchable if it hasn't been for what Jericho's been doing. And last night, he had the funniest segment at the beginning of the show. He had the main event match, main event style at the end of the show, put the other guy over, even in defeat for Bandito. Bandito came off more important and more special, had the whole crowd in Philadelphia chanting his name. This is the first time this guy's on AEW television. He didn't do that by himself. He did that because of his dance partner in Chris Jericho. And the angle they're taking about this Ring of Honor thing where Chris is like, I'm just going to destroy everything that Ring of Honor stands for. He doesn't shake the hand. He flicks Bandito off at the beginning of the match. At the end of the night, he gives the Judas effect to the ring announcer. He's putting in a Hall of Fame effort just in AEW alone.
Hey, bro. You know me, man. Me and Chris, we go way back, a long way. We good friends. He knows this business like the back of his hand. I didn't see the match or anything like that, but his last, couple of matches before that, I told you he's been like Shakespeare, going out and putting on just great performances. And at 51 years old, you know what I mean? That right there, just lets me know how much he's still dedicated to the game, that this is just not something that he's playing around with. A lot of guys will phone it in, bro. A lot of guys will phone it in and give you as little as they possibly can, especially around that age right there, man, because that's when guys normally start slowing down and you normally can see it. But Chris, in the ring, in his performance, he still got it, bro. He's still performing at a very, very high level. And I got nothing but praise for the dude, man. Nothing but praise. Can you dig it, sucker?
You are listening to the Hall of Fame. Here's Booker T and Brad Gilmore.
Can you dig it, sucker?
You are listening to the Hall of Fame. Here's Booker T and Brad Gilmore.
Not getting over here, which is true.
Yeah.
All of that is true. You
Right.
know what I mean? And it's hard to get over when you ain't got no time to go out and do anything.
When you're not on television, when you're not booked.
Hell, Sammy Guevara, he's my guy. He came from my school, but I haven't seen Sammy on television. When the last time you seen Sammy? Has Sammy been on television?
I mean, you've been doing both of them have been on TV in segments,
sporadic.
but it's sporadic. Yeah, absolutely.
As far as being
Sammy's more of a Rampage guy. He's on Rampage a lot.
But as far as being in an angle, a real angle, something that you can really sink your teeth into, nobody on that roster has really gotten over. Let me know if I'm wrong.
You're saying they weren't previously over from somewhere else?
Yeah. No.
You know what? There's a couple, right? Wardlow, MJF.
Okay, Wardlow's
over. And the Acclaimed. I'd say those are their three biggest success stories.
Okay. I can buy that. I can buy that. But
just to be fair, but you are right. And here's the thing: even Wardlow, he's gotten over, but it's not like he's been booked a whole hell of a lot in a really great manner.
Tell me this: outside of MJF, okay, can you name one guy that he's wrestled?
I can, only because I thought it was such a head scratcher for his first defense to be against Orange Cassidy.
Okay. Okay.
But your point is valid.
Let's put Orange Cassidy to the side.
No, to answer your question.
Name three other people that Wardlow has faced.
No clue.
That's what I mean. That's what I'm talking about. As far as getting over, he's had some squash matches. He's gone out there and beat some guys up. But as far as getting over, I have not seen that. Okay, and the reason why, it's not to Wardlow's fault or anything like that. Like I say, those guys have very little time to do anything. You got to be in a program to get over. You think I just woke up one day and the people was behind me and bringing signs?
No.
It was an investment that the company made in me, pushing me on a weekly basis. I was the king of Saturday night at one time. defending the television championship every Saturday night. So what I'm saying is nobody in that company has real, other than guys that's already over, but a few guys, like you just said, no one has really gotten over to the point to where they are to be looked at as superstars.
Right. No, I agree with you. To me, when you think about AEW, as far as guys getting to that next level, it is right. They're not getting enough television time. And to me, when I watched the show last week, and this is no disrespect to Juice Robinson, who was working John Moxley on the show, but if I'm somebody in AEW like Wardlow or Andrade or any of these guys who haven't had enough time, I'm like, what are you bringing in a guy like Juice Robinson for, who's not even signed to the company? Like, why is he working the world champion on TV? That should be me. I should be working the world champ. Like, if you need a body in there, I'll take that TV time to try to get myself over.
Yeah.
You know, like what you've always said with you and your brother is, hey, they weren't going to give you promo time, so you cut your promo in the camera. Like you took that time, the time that's worth its weight in gold, to try to get yourself over. I don't understand bringing somebody else in who's not even on your roster to work your world champion on television.
Yeah, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. As far as there again, like you say, nobody wins in that situation. I don't know. Juice Robinson, have they signed him now?
I don't believe so. I believe he's still a free agent.
That's what I'm saying. You know what I mean? You're exactly right. Me personally, I'll take a L, against the champ just to get myself on television, to get myself over. I can get myself over in a loss. You know what I mean? Just put me out there. But to bring in someone like Juice Robinson when you got a whole roster of guys that you could really be creating something with, I don't get it. Just like Will Ospreay, bringing Will Ospreay in for, one-off pretty much to do nothing. That was a guy that you could have really, used in a way to where you really got something out of him, opposed to him just coming in and having a couple of matches, and that's the only thing I remember from Will Ospreay coming in is he had a couple of matches, but there was no spotlight, there was no highlight, there was no package build up, there was no starlight put on this dude that they could have. That was a moment that was missed. And there again, what I say about moments, when they're gone forever. And that's pretty much that's their loss. And he's in his zone right there, man.
Sting's longevity is insane. Like when you really think
really
about
is.
it, it's an incredible career.
Bro,
it's an incredible career.
I was a young man, let me just be straight. I was a kid. I hate to say like I was a kid watching Sting, but I was a kid watching Sting on Houston Wrestling with the Ultimate Warrior, Jim Hellwig, as the Blade Runners when they first got started. And I was like, wow, man, they was so freaking cool and so different, and of course, Sting went his way to, NWA, Warrior went his way to Dallas, and then ended up in, WWF. I tell you, man, he's had a hell of a career, man, all the way through the WCW run, from the beginning to the end. Seemed like he seemed like almost like he opened TNA and shut it down as well. You know what I mean? I'm serious. You know what I mean? Main Event Mafia stuff, and then now in AEW, no one would have thought that. No one would have thought that Sting would still be in the game, still doing it today.
It's seriously so impressive.
Yeah, really is. Can you dig it, sucker?
You are listening to the Hall of Fame. Here's Booker T and Brad Gilmore.
And he joins me right now to talk about Svengoolie's Halloween Bonanza that kicks off on MeTV starting October the 1st with the first ever Svengoolie primetime special. Really excited to talk to him. Richard Koz joins us this morning. Svengoolie, how you doing?
I'm good, Brad. Nice to talk to you.
Hey, it's nice to talk to you as well. I mean, we're in your season. This is where you thrive. This is where you shine. Are you ready for this Halloween season?
Oh, yeah. And my boss, Neil Saban, the guy who created Me TV, always says December is owned by Santa Claus, but October is owned by Svengoolie. So I've got to live up to that.
Hey, man, I remember being, this must be, I don't know, I was probably early 20s, late teens. I was in a Mexican restaurant in Houston, Texas, and they were playing Me TV on the television in the waiting area. And it's the first time that I saw you. And he sees Svengoolie. You remember it. You're a very distinct looking character, to say the very least. And I said, man, who is this guy? What is he all about? And then I started watching you that Halloween season. This must have been 2011 or 12-ish. And and what I love, though, about what you do and what you present and what Me TV is able to do is I'm not a horror movie guy per se, when you think about the slasher films, but I do love the Halloween season, and y'all have been able to really cultivate something that's easy to watch for the whole family.
And that's exactly what we're trying to do. Me TV is supposed to be, family entertainment, and we keep that in mind. We present some of those old Universal classics that, in a way, we're kind of showing for the first time for some of the younger folks who've never seen them. In a lot of the markets that we're in, those Universal movies haven't been broadcast over the air in over 15 or 20 years. So it's a chance for a lot of people to see them for the first time. And, and when there is something in our movies that might be something that might disturb people, I always make sure to put warnings in because, I think that's part of my responsibility. But, we try to get as much of a variety of movies as we can that will hopefully appeal to all the different ages that watch us.
Yeah, and I think y'all do a great job of that. If I can go start, though, with you, you took over this mantle, right, of Svengoolie. You weren't always there was an original Svengoolie. Am I right about this? Can you tell me kind of how the transition happened?
Sure. In the early 70s, local radio and TV guy that I was a big fan of, Jerry G. Bishop, just happened to be the voiceover announcer on Friday nights on WFLD in Chicago. And he was just supposed to do the announcements, but he started playing around with them and became the character. And this went to him being actually, visible on camera. And I was just a fan. I sent him material, and he liked it, and he heard that I was a broadcast student and brought me in, and I worked with him. And he was the one that decided I should be the son of Svengoolie. So first of all, that was a great honor to me, and the fact that he trusted that I'd be able to handle it. So for many years here, from I think 79 to around 86, I was on in Chicago as son of Svengoolie. But then when I got my job with the folks from Y2J Broadcasting, who own Me TV, I was talking to Jerry, and I said, I'm thinking a lot of people don't remember Svengoolie, unfortunately, so I'm thinking of changing the name. And he said to me, look, you're all grown up, just be Svengoolie. So that was cool.
Oh, man, that's awesome. Awesome origin story. Because, I understand kind of this Svengoolie character in a way, because, I work down here in Houston. I work for a guy named Booker T, who's a professional wrestler. And we do.
Yeah, I know Booker T.
Oh, you know Book?
Yeah, we've met before.
Okay, yeah, he's a great guy, and we do radio out here together. And there's crossover, right, between Svengoolie and a wrestling character. You kind of have your gimmick, you know how to work your gimmick, you have your merchandise, things of that nature. And like any great pro wrestler, whether that be Hulk Hogan tearing his T-shirt, whether that be the Macho Man with his crazy outfits, or Ric Flair with his woo and his sequin robes, Svengoolie has a distinct look, but it also, you have your gimmicks. You have the rubber chicken thing, right? I mean, everybody knows Svengoolie and the rubber chicken. What was the origin of that? Like, how did that come about?
Well, that actually goes back to the original Svengoolie, Jerry. When he was on, he was like me. He did what today you might call dad jokes and groaners. And he felt that it should be like in the old days of vaudeville, when somebody was not going over well with a crowd or told a bad joke. when the audience would throw rotten tomatoes and things at him. Now, obviously on TV, you can't do that because of the cleanup. And he thought of another vaudeville type prop, the rubber chicken. And he suggested, how about when I tell a bad joke, they throw rubber chickens at me? And that's where it all started.
And you just carried on the legacy there.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, that's awesome. Talk to me about this original primetime special, Svengoolie Uncrypted. This is the first time that you're doing a special like this?
Yeah, it's kind of cool. Actually, MeTV brought in a special production crew that does documentaries for places like Discovery and such. And it's a little different animal than what they did before. But they wanted to do something that would touch on parts of my career. And also, we've got a little story built into it where I'm looking for some artifacts from the beginning of my career. And I'm traveling around various parts of Chicago. There are some special cameo celebrity appearances in it, which you won't want to miss. And it all winds up with me going to the suburb we always mention, Berwyn, where they actually held a Svengoolie Day celebration. It's a lot of fun, and I think people are going to enjoy seeing it and maybe learn a little bit about my past. And, it's a great honor for me.
And it's really awesome because when you think of the Halloween season, like I said before, and you think of MeTV, obviously Svengoolie is the guy. Help me settle this debate. My grandfather and my mother always had this debate when I was growing up of my grandfather was the Munsters, my mother was the Addams Family. Which one is in the correct camp? Who's the winner of this debate? Are you Team Munsters or are you the Addams Family?
It's kind of tough. I think that as far as holding up better, there's times when the Addams Family has the edge on that. And Munsters, but, you can't get past the comedy of Al Lewis and Herman there. It's hard to tell. See, it's two different things. It's apples and oranges in some ways, even though they're in the same genre. So I think they're both right, actually.
Do you have a personal favorite between the two?
Well, actually, we ran more of the Addams Family on MeTV for a while, and I was really just taken by the writing and the way that the characters were maintained. And John Astin as Gomez, it was almost like a lot of times very much in the vein of Groucho Marx with his quick comebacks. So I think I'm a little bit more in that camp.
Yeah, I watched something about the making of that original Addams Family television series, and of course it was in black and white, which I think added to it. I don't think you could have done it in color, but when you see color stills of the set, it was like pink and purple and very vibrant. That doesn't come across on television, but I always thought that was funny. Now you're also not just doing, I guess, shows or movies that would be deemed as normal Halloween movies or shows like spooky and ghost related, but also some of the classics like Green Acres and the Brady Bunch and Gilligan's Island, some of those great Halloween episodes, right?
Yeah, there's going to be every Sunday afternoon blocks of various shows. A lot of times it's the sitcoms, like you mentioned. We'll also have Kolchak, the Night Stalker, Alfred Hitchcock Presents, Twilight Zone, and Addams Family. I should throw that in, I guess.
There you go.
That'll be every Sunday during October. And also in the regular schedule, you'll have some of the episodes of the various shows in their normal time slot that will have a spooky theme. We've got a real variety of them.
My favorite movie of all time is Back to the Future, which actually takes place during the Halloween season. It's in October, although you can't really tell from the movie, but it is an October Halloween film in some regards due to the time period. But what a lot of people don't realize is Robert Zemeckis, the director of the movie, and Bob Gale, the co-writer, they got their first break on Kolchak the Night Stalker, which is such a fun show. I can't believe, I think Kolchak only went for a season. Is that right?
Yeah, that is. And I always was surprised by that, too, because I love it, and the concept is great, and Darren McGavin just pulls it off so well. But yeah, and I know they tried a remake of it a few years ago that didn't quite fly, and I think part of that was because you didn't have Darren McGavin as Kolchak. I think he was, a big part of the show, and he handled it so well.
The show I think was phenomenal, and the episodes hold up. I mean, I've always liked the vampire episode, the one I think it was called the Devil's Platform or something like that. I've watched a lot of these. Do you have a particular favorite of Kolchak?
One of my favorite ones is the one where there's some sort of spirit that takes on the appearance of someone you know and that you trust, and it lures you towards them, and then it kills you. I don't recall the name of the episode, but it's fantastic. And I believe there's a guest appearance by Phil Silvers at the beginning of it, even. So there's some TV history there.
Oh, look at that! Look at that. What do you though think of the because you talked about remakes of the Night Stalker? They tried it didn't work. Universal also tried to kind of reboot the classic horror film franchise, if you will. They wanted to do all these crossovers of The Invisible Man and The Mummy that Tom Cruise did. What did you think about that effort? Did you find it to be, I don't know, a step in the wrong direction, or did you like kind of the Mummy movie that we got and The Invisible Man movie?
Well, I like the Brendan Fraser Mummy movie.
Those are fun.
More than the Tom Cruise one.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it had the same feel as a lot of the Universal early monster movies that had humor in them as well as the scary stuff. And I liked the Van Helsing movie.
With Hugh Jackman.
I thought that could have led to much more, but obviously, it did not. But, any of the recent tries don't seem to have quite, held up as well. And, the fact that they really don't end up with sequels or, more like one character meeting the other in a movie. I think that kind of shows that it isn't quite clicking.
The Universal monster movies or the horror movies from the early days are so rewatchable. I mean, I think that's why that we can still play them on MeTV and they draw an audience because you can almost pick up them wherever they are in the movie and still enjoy. It's kind of one of those rewatches. What's your favorite of the Universal?
Oh, it's hard to say. I like different ones for different reasons. Definitely Bride of Frankenstein, which I believe will be showing sometime soon. And another one is, this is from the 50s, The Creature from the Black Lagoon, because it seemed like such an original concept. And, it worked really well. So those are two. I always hate to name one favorite because I like different movies for different reasons.
I think it must have been on MeTV. I can't imagine where else I would have seen it. The Vincent Price House on Haunted Hill. That was always one of my favorites growing. I know it's not like, what we were talking about with the Universal monster movies, but I love the House on Haunted Hill. And Vincent Price, kind of just an all-timer as far as the horror genre. People might know him from the voice on Michael Jackson's Thriller and things of that nature. What do you think about Vincent Price? Do you hold him in the same regard that I do? Because I put him high up on my list.
Definitely so. And I think he more or less moved into the top horror spots that were occupied by Karloff and Lon Chaney Jr. when he moved into it in the late 50s and early 60s especially, and right through to the 70s. He was so terrific. And here again was a guy that could be absolutely menacing and frightening and also had a way with comedy as well. Very versatile actor, and he's a big, important part of the horror genre.
Another guy who's a big, important part of the horror genre, Alfred Hitchcock. I remember seeing The Birds when I was a kid, and I actually went, ironically enough, to Edgar Allan Poe Elementary School, home of the Ravens, go figure. And I saw when I was a kid, I saw The Birds, and it stuck with me, and I don't think I ever really got over it. I never looked at those feathered creatures the same since then. Why was Alfred Hitchcock so great, and why do we still love his movies?
Well, I think he had a great sense of, suspense and building up to surprises that would scare you. He was an excellent director. He would throw things in that would completely throw people off, like the fact in Psycho that, the main star who's in the movie dies pretty early on. Mm-hmm. Nobody expected that. Again, he really had a way of, surprising you and, just building tension. And it was also great writing from his writers he had.
do you still find that horror films made today, like Jordan Peele is a big director now in the horror genre? Do you feel that they I don't know, do they connect with you the same way some of these ones did?
A few do. Jordan Peele especially. I think he's doing a great job with this. Again, I'm more of an old school guy, and I prefer practical effects, and makeup to CGI stuff. Even though a lot of that is well done and really works, but there seems to be fewer that really appeal to me these days. I guess I'm old school.
Well, I think that being able to do effects practically in the camera gives you such a different realism than the CGI. I mean, I was actually, we talked about Booker. He and I just had this conversation the other day on the radio about, I like the original Incredible Hulk with Lou Ferrigno more than the one in the movies, because Lou Ferrigno, although the paint wasn't the greatest, he felt like a real person in the frame. And I felt like he really was tearing through that wall.
Yeah, definitely so. It's the real physical presence that I think really sells it. And definitely. He did a great job.
Well, again, Svengoolie, the season kicks off starting this Saturday, of course, October the 1st. And we're looking forward to seeing the original primetime special. Check your local listings, obviously, where it's playing. We're in the Central Time Zone, so it would be around I believe the 8 o'clock hour here in the South. But make sure you check out that Svengoolie Uncrypted. I'm really looking forward to that. And I appreciate you for joining us this morning and just talking about the Halloween season. We're here. This is Svengoolie time. One more time, why should people tune into Me TV during this Halloween season?
Well, we've got more scary stuff in all different genres for fans of that type of thing. And I want people to know that our regular movie starts an hour earlier this week in order to make room for that special. So tune in an hour earlier than you normally do, and you'll be happy to, because it's Karen Black in the Immortal Trilogy of Terror, and you don't want to miss that.
Hey, man, well, I'll be checking it out all October long, and I just really appreciate you taking some time for us, and congratulations on all your success. Svengoolie.com is where you can find out more about you, get some of our merchandise, and get ready for the Halloween season. Svengoolie, I appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Brad. And say hi to Booker for me. I hope he remembers me.
I will. I'll tell him this afternoon. We really appreciate it. Svengoolie, everybody.
Can you dig it, sucker?
You are listening to the Hall of Fame. Here's Booker T and Brad Gilmore.